Is that a product of reason as well? That we can infer, we can almost like deduce, hey, this hurts me.
Yes.
So that guy as a person too, this would probably hurt him. And then I could apply my reason malevolently, I suppose, to, torture or whatever the guy. How does
So I
evil fit
don't.
into this picture?
So evil fits in. Evil is death. Evil is that which leads to death. Evil is that which leads to destruction. Now, I don't know that in the moment that human beings wake up, become human, whatever that moment is, the fall, they discover reason. They know what's good and what's bad. Mm-hmm. They need now to go out and live and experience and test and figure stuff out. And really, morality is a product. Let's say human beings became conscious, reasoning beings 100,000 years ago. It might have been 1,000,000 years ago. I don't know exactly what the number is. Morality is young, right? Mm-hmm. Morality is probably only 10,000 years old, mm-hmm. because it took them a lot of time to test, to kill, and look, again, morality for me is not what you do to other people primarily. It's what you do with yourself. Mm. It's how you spend your time. To me, it's immoral, for example, to mope around all day and do nothing. And unless you're resting, right? But if, we know people who just sit in their mother's basement and play video games all day and they do nothing productive, right? That's immoral. Not because they're hurting anybody else, but because they're hurting themselves. And the primary person this is the selfishness. The primary person you should be taking care of is you. So morality should be concerned. The whole point of morality is to teach us how to live. Mm-hmm. Give us the principles. We've been around for 100,000 years. What have we learned in the last 100,000 years? What leads to happiness? What leads to death? What leads to destruction? That's what morality, that's what Ayn Rand does. She takes all the things we learned and gives us principles based on the things we've learned that leads us to life versus, and she says, avoid all these things that lead to death. And maybe Cain has to kill Abel to figure out that killing is bad. It's not like morality exists, again, independent of our understanding it, right? We have to understand, we have to comprehend it. We have to figure it out. It doesn't just, we have to discover it. It doesn't just appear to us. It's not the word of God. That's not morality. Morality is something we need to discover.
Let me ask you this further question then. So evil is that which leads to death, but it seems like evil can be even more nefarious than that, where I think of like in the Jewish internment camps, they had the work will set you free thing. Yeah. And they just made people carry the sandbags back and forth, right? Like they could have just killed them and been done with it. That would have been one degree of evil, but it seems like there was this intentional suffering imposed on others. So what is that all about? Because it's not just about death. That's about some sadistic pleasure or something.
Yeah. So evil by its nature leads to death, but mm-hmm. it can lead to death through a lot of paths. It can mm-hmm. lead to death very slowly. It can lead to death very fast. And there's certain human beings, who get satisfaction in some superficial way out of, the sadists, and they get satisfaction out of seeing other people hurting, mm-hmm. other people suffering. Particularly, one of the important things the Nazis did, and they spent a lot of resources on this, is dehumanizing Jews. Mm-hmm. So the people in the concentration camp were not human to them. It was like rats.
Right.
And they were torturing rats. And torturing rats is bad enough. I'm not for torturing rats. No. But it's easier to torture a rat than it is to torture a human being if you've got any decency in you, right?
Right.
You still shouldn't torture rats either, yeah. But it's easier. So first they dehumanize Jews, and then they torture them. And, it takes a certain level of sickness and disgust and horror to embrace that, to embrace suffering. And again, Jordan Peterson has this thing where he says, everybody could be a Nazi, right? We could all be Nazis, any one of us. I don't think that's true. Very few people could be Nazis. And the historical fact is that Most people were not guards at the concentration camps. Most people did everything they could not to do that. It's the tiniest minority who are actually willing to do the horrible things that, for example, Nazis did. We're very good at evading that. We might know it's happening and not want to do anything about it, and that's also evil in some sense. But to actually engage in evil activities, those kind of evil activities, very, very few human beings are capable of doing it.
Is this dehumanization process, is this equivalent to inspiring the belief that those group of people over there don't have reason?
Yeah.
Are you saying absolutely. We have reason and they don't? So therefore we need to...
They're animals. They're animals, and therefore you can do whatever you want with them. And this is again why reason is so crucial. Why the whole idea of reason. So what do the Nazis say? And the communists do the same thing. It's an interesting trick. What they say is truth is only available to Aryans. Truth is only available to the Aryan race. Race determines truth. Jews cannot reason. Only Aryans could reason. And to them, reason means something else. Reason means to them discovery of truth. So the Aryan people are superior in some way. The primary way in which they're superior is they have a mystical connection to the truth. In communism, it's the proletarian. The proletarian have some mystical connection to the truth. Now, the problem with those theories are, because those are theories philosophers come up with, is that, well, the fact is the Aryan people don't have any connection to the truth and the proletarian don't have any connection to truth. So how are they supposed to know what they do? Well, that's where you get dictatorships. That's why you have to have a dictator. The dictator is the representative of the group who connects with the world of spirits, who connects with the truth, and then guides the masses towards that truth. And part of the truth is that the Jews don't have access to it. They'll never discover the truth. They don't have this form of reason, supposedly. They don't have this form of discovery truth. So therefore, they're just animals. And therefore, we can do whatever we want with them. That's why, the proletarian can kill as many people as they need in order to achieve the utopia, because the people they're killing are not true human beings in some fundamental sense.
Wow.
They're not connected. And you think about Catholicism has this, the Pope historically communes with God.
Yeah.
He's the only person on planet Earth that knows the truth.
Conduit to truth.
Now, if he really is the conduit to truth, then we're all his minions. We're nothings. We don't have reason. We just have to bow in front of him and do what he tells us. And that's the power of religion. That's the power of authoritarianism. That's the power of this kind of philosophical idea. It all goes back to Plato. Plato has this idea that only certain people, the philosopher kings, have access to the truth. Everybody else has no access to truth and cannot have access to the truth. And that's power. If you can convince millions of people they can never know the truth, they have to rely on you for the truth forever. They're your slaves forever.
Right. Wow. I want to read this kind of chilling whitehouse.gov excerpt from a press releases. We are intent on not letting Omicron disrupt work and school for the vaccinated. You've done the right thing and we will get through this. For the unvaccinated, you're looking at a winter of severe illness and death for yourselves, your families, and the hospitals you may soon overwhelm.
This is why government should never have anything to do with healthcare.
Yeah.
Leave us alone. Plenty of scientists out there who can provide information. Leave us alone. There's a small role for governments in pandemics, but other than that, we just isolate people who really have the disease who might infect others when it's deadly. But questionable how deadly this is, and at least this new variant, particularly and then leave us alone. Let us decide if we want to get vaccinated. Not to get vaccinated.
Can I ask you then, is there, in your estimation, a conscious attempt here to make or classify the unvaccinated as an unreasonable cohort of the population? And I'm not trying to pick a side here, but the problem with that is they also keep changing the definition of unvaccinated. You could have had 2 and not 3 or 4 and not 5. And you
to some extent, because the facts change. So, the fact that they change their mind doesn't bother me that much because I understand the facts behind it, and the reality does change. They're not omniscient. They don't know everything. They're gonna have to move as the virus moves. But yeah, there's no question they're trying to create this view of the unvaccinated as monsters, the unvaccinated as irrational, emotion-driven, unreasonable people, and there are political reasons for that because most unvaccinated Republicans, so this administration in particular, has an interest in saying Republicans are irrational, crazy people because they're trying to get the independents to go against the crazies and to vote for them. So there's definitely a conscious effort to portray them. The problem with bad people is they're never conscious of how evil they really are. They're only conscious of it up to a point because you couldn't actually admit to the evil that you actually engage in. I mean, Hitler and people like that had to evade their own evilness, which took a lot of work to do because you can't face that in the mirror and not commit suicide and not go crazy. But yes, they're definitely trying to dehumanize the unvaccinated. And this is why government has no business in all of this. I'm hugely pro-vaccines, just so we're on the table. I think vaccines are great. I'm going to get my booster next week. Yeah. But the fact is that if it's right, people suffer the consequences. This is nature, right? This is a morality springing back at you.
Right.
If it's true that the unvaccinated are taking their lives in their own hands, then they're taking their lives in their own hands and they're going to suffer the consequences. And maybe many of them have already died and many of them will die. Okay, that's their problem. It's not mine. It's not. My job is not to save them from themselves. My job is first and foremost to save myself and to help the people I love and care for. And I can educate other people. I can help. I can articulate the case for vaccines, tell you why it's a good thing to get vaccinated. But at the end of the day, your life is yours, right? That's the principle.
Yeah, your
choice. Yeah. And if you choose to jump off a cliff without a parachute, I'm not going to stop you. I believe in the right to suicide. I believe in the right to kill yourself because that's what a right to life means. It means the right to live or not, as the case may be.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Okay. So sorry to go down that dark turn there. It was coming to mind as we're describing this process of dehumanization. And I don't know, that was a kind of a creepy press release from the White House.
But if you
that
think
came
about
out 2 years ago, I think people would have been up in arms.
Yeah, but it did come out 2 years ago, just different, right? So think about how Trump, from the moment he started running, worked to dehumanize immigrants.
Okay.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was just unbelievable. And it was right along these paths. All your problems are caused by immigrants. There's carnage in the streets of America. We're living through the most peaceful period of all of American history, which was 2016, 2017. And he's saying carnage in the streets of America. Caused by whom? By those open borders, by those immigrants, by those, he made fun of a Hispanic judge. He just went on and on and on throughout his term, dehumanizing immigrants. Now, we could have a debate about how much immigration makes sense or doesn't make sense or open borders or whatever. But that's not what he was doing. He wasn't having a discussion about it. He was treating them as subhuman. Right. And it was purposeful. It was a way in which to rail up his audience, right? His audience got excited when he did that. And that's exactly denying them reason, denying them agency, denying them humanity, denying them humanity.